Well, many thanks for keeping it Citizen TV. You're watching Newsnight, and it is a grand entry into Ethiopia for this company, a SIM registration exercise, and a chop on Fuliza rates back at home. Just what does the future hold for East Africa's most profitable company? We're talking about Safaricom, and that's why I'm glad to have with me here on Newsnight tonight the CEO, Peter Ndegwa, for a conversation I know many of you have been waiting for. Bwana CEO, many thanks.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you, Wahiga.
Thank you. I know it's been a busy period for you. I can imagine that you spent the last couple of days involved with the process of the SIM card registration and the deadline in regards to that as well.
That's right.
How would you rate the process so far? 91% compliance, but noticeable complaints online. Talk to us about that.
I think it's fair to say that we are doing the SIM registration so that we protect customers. We know that the law requires that we make sure that we evidence that we have registered every SIM holder. The law changed in 2015. There's a lot of historical customers who had not adhered to that law. So the CA actually required all of us, all the MNOs, to do it from scratch. And we've made huge progress since April. I know you've mentioned 91. Today we are 93%. I know there has been some few complaints. There's always complaints when you are registering customers, but this is for customers' own good. So I suggest for anyone, including you, if you have not registered, please go ahead. And it's very simple. You can do it online. You can go to the shops. And so it is very simple. We've made the journey extremely simple.
I want to narrow in on one of those complaints specifically. Advocate Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi complained that his line had been switched off. He later on went to tell Kenyans that it's back on and his office will regularize it, in the coming week. But some question the fact that he's a high-profile personality who seemed to get some privilege because of that particular fact. What do you say to Kenyans who've not been accorded the same benefit?
There's no one who has gotten any privilege. So the 15th of October was the deadline for us to have everyone registered. So we started to switch off in a small way all customers. We allowed them to use some of the services, and you are right. Nasir was one of them. He was not favored. He's already registered. So like everyone else, we've asked him to register, and he's complied with it.
And he has complied with it.
Yeah.
What is the benefit or the biggest threat posed by unregistered phone lines in this country? Because
Safaricom has not just the communication business, but also the mobile financial services. We are effectively looking after people's money. So it is very important that we register every single customer. We have learned a lot. Some customers have been able to check whether on their ID, only the phones, only their numbers are registered on their IDs. Some customers found out that there may be other numbers that they were not aware that were registered on their phones. So it's important to have cleaned up so that customers know that their money is safe and also their data is safe.
For those who are affected because they did not meet the requirements within the deadline, what are their options today?
So we've been given by the CA another 60 days, not necessarily as an extension of the registration process, but as a way of avoiding everyone being deregistered today, but ensuring that everyone, including those in the rural areas, because there are so many people in remote parts of Kenya that we need to take into account. There's only about 7% remaining. So we believe during the next 6 days, we should be able to enable everyone to register, including those living abroad. There's a portal that everyone can use to make sure that they are registered.
You only have 7% of your subscriber base remaining, but that's a big number because you have a huge subscriber base. And CA had put in certain penalties for telecoms that will not have complied by the deadline. I believe it's a percentage of your turnover or something of the sort.
That's correct.
Some rough numbers out there. If the 7% don't comply within the next 60 days, some estimate that Safaricom will be forced to pay up to 1.4 billion Kenya shillings in fines or something of the sort. What's your response? Does that concern you this evening?
We will always obey the laws and we'll always follow the regulations that the CA has set. So in 60 days, if anyone is left unregistered, we'll have to be forced to switch them off or at least to suspend services until they are able to register. The CA has a rule that you can be fined up to 0.5% of turnover. We do not expect to disobey the CA. And that's the reason why the C has been understanding, given the progress that the industry has made, to give us a slightly additional time to allow those customers who have not been able to do it in the time frame that has been given.
What impact does this process have on cybersecurity in this country? Talk to us about that.
Cybersecurity is perhaps the biggest risk that we face with IT infrastructure, the ability to access data, the ability to misuse information, the ability to SIM swap someone and probably potentially make customers lose money. The advantage of registering and doing KYC, which is Know Your Customer, in the way that we have done, ensures that we have information for everyone. And we have actually seen the losses that we are seeing on M-Pesa in terms of customers losing their money reduce significantly as we have continued to register more customers. So cybersecurity is there, but we have significant procedures to ensure that it doesn't happen. We have some of the best controls within our business. Many of our employees who are in cybersecurity are hotcakes in the industry because of the advantage we have as a leading technology company.
Complaints have been raised online by some that your network could even be illegally used to track Kenyans. What assurances would you give Kenyans today that, that's not happening?
Our network is not used to track Kenyans. We do not have the capacity to track Kenyans. We do not use our network to track Kenyans. There's a lot of misinformation out there. All I can say is we protect customer data. There's a Data Protection Act which we follow to the letter, and we can assure customers that their data is safe with us, and we are respected as a brand in this country, and we continue to do that going forward.
This then comes on the back of an announcement that you made on the 20th of September 2022 that you are slashing interest rates on Fuliza loans below 1,000 shillings, I believe, by 40%, and you also introduced a 3-day grace period for borrowers. What necessitated this dramatic slash?
We are delighted to be restructuring the cost of Fuliza to individuals. As you know, Fuliza is a very popular product. I don't know whether you use Fuliza or Ika, but Fuliza is used by 7 out of 10, if not more, of our customer base across the country. Certainly, anyone you see in the streets will have used Fuliza at one point or the other. We were conscious that there were complaints about the level of cost of Fuliza, but also how Fuliza is used. Sometimes people extend the credit. Fuliza is supposed to be used as an emergency credit for a few days. If you use Fuliza for a few days, Fuliza is fairly affordable. So what we did is to restructure the cost so that the first 3 days, especially for those Fuliza limits that are below 1,000, it's free. And then after that, you are charged a daily maintenance fee. If a customer pays within 4 or 5 days, the Fuliza will be one of the most affordable overdraft facility. And then therefore, if a customer needs something else, they can always come for a term loan, they can go to a bank, and going forward, we'll be announcing more products that we can give customers options instead of use Fuliza for. We realized that Fuliza was being used for up to 10 days or 14 days or 20 days, which becomes too expensive for customers. So today, we've reduced Fuliza cost by 50% on average. Secondly, we've also working with NCBA and KCB as our banking partners are going to be repairing 4 million customers that are previously listed in the CRB.
They're going to, sorry, and I missed that last part. They're going to be taking them off the blacklist.
Taking them off the listing on the CRB so that they are able to access new loans. Because when you are listed on CRB, you may be unable to access loans. So we will be repairing. We are calling it repair.
Oh, repairing, that's
repairing those customers. So it is 4 million additional customers who will be able to be free to access Fuliza and other lending products out there.
For those who've been keenly following that announcement, what are the timelines?
The repair will happen from November. It couldn't happen straight away because there are some things that needed to be done in advance of that, but it will happen from November.
So what has been the impact on the activity around the Fuliza product since that announcement was made in terms of disbursements and repayments?
So, of course, people have said Safaricom and the banks are going to lose a bit of money. Yes, of course, there will be a reduction in the revenue that we earn. But since we reduced the cost, we've seen increase in numbers using Fuliza. We've seen more frequency of customers using Fuliza, and actually higher amounts using Fuliza. So we expect over time the revenue will be recovered through the additional usage by customers. And it means that if the product is more sustainable and more affordable, we believe that is better for the future of this product and also for customers.
In the short term, do you have an estimate on the drop in revenue?
I don't have an estimate because it's still early days. I'm sure by the time we announce our results, you can give a bit more information, which will be in about 3-4 weeks.
Okay. Now, during the announcement on fees reduction, President William Ruto was in attendance. He detailed his desire to see lower interest costs on other products, other facilities linked to customers, your M-Shwari, and the others that are offered by other banks as well. How soon might there be a similar reduction in fees in some of the other products you offer?
I do not want to comment on what other partners might do, but what I will say is that we continue to review affordability of all our products, whether they are GSM, communication products, data or voice, and also mobile financial services. And with time, we'll be able to announce those reductions, but also we'll be able to announce new products that meet new customer needs, including lending. I know the new government really want to avail lending, especially to small and medium-sized enterprises. That's an area that we are very keen to work with the new administration and also with the regulators to make sure that we have the relevant products that allow customers to access those products.
I'm not sure whether you've gotten a chance, CEO, to look at a report by a consultancy group, Deloitte, and data company DataEQ, that found that a majority of M-Pesa users actually regretted signing up on Fuliza. Is it possible that you're serving unwilling clients who maybe don't have another option?
What I will say is that the need for Fuliza is there. What we realized, and that this is the reason why we introduced Fuliza, is that 50% of transactions were failing every day. On M-Pesa were failing every day because of insufficient funds. And they were being completed a day later or 2 days later. And that's the reason why Fuliza was introduced. If you're buying medicine and the medicine costs you 1,050 and you only have 1,000, you need that 50, and that's why you Fuliza. It's only that Fuliza has now been used as a term loan instead of as an emergency credit. When Fuliza is used as an emergency credit, it's very beneficial for customers. And we see it in the level of usage, and that's why we have been able to reduce the cost, providing it's more affordable, and especially for those amounts below 1,000, free for the first 3 days. It means that people can meet the need, which we know exists, but at a more affordable price.
What is a typical profile of the average user of Fuliza?
It's your average person walking on the street, the person who takes matatu every day, the boda rider out there. Even myself, I can go into a shop, into a supermarket, and I have 21,000, and the bill is 22,000, and the Fuliza, that's 1,000. And we see it even on our GSM services. When someone is buying airtime, they could be buying airtime for 100 shillings, but they have 90 shillings. So you Fuliza 10 shillings. So it is actually emergency credit. It is not supposed to be a term credit beyond 7 days.
And of course, Fuliza is tied to your mobile money product, M-Pesa.
Correct.
We saw one of your competitors, Airtel, recently spinning off their money transfer unit from the main company.
Yeah.
Are you having any plans to follow suit on the same?
Safaricom has been a very successful business, both on the GSM side, which is the communication side, voice and data, but also on the mobile financial services, with M-Pesa being a great innovation. And one of the reasons why it's been successful is because it has been a combined brand between Safaricom and M-Pesa. Even on our foundation, we actually operate as one company. We see it as beneficial to customers because they use the same platform, they use the same infrastructure. We spend and invest to support both businesses. And actually the team work collaboratively to be able to deliver propositions that are relevant for customers. So it's been beneficial to keep the company together. What we do intend to do is to create a group company or a group structure In the same way that banks or other companies like East Africa Breweries and other consumer goods companies have a group structure where you have different businesses under the PLC. So there will still be one listed business, but with different businesses, including, for example, we want to create a tower company where we share towers with our competitors. So we do intend to go into a group structure, but we do not intend to spin off M-Pesa into a separate business. We need to do it if it is in the best interest of customers or in the best interest of shareholders. If it is not in the best interest of either of those two, or even in the best interest of the society, we will wait for the moment that is required for us to be able for that need. Some of our competitors have done it because they wanted to raise financing. We are not in any need at this stage to raise any financing externally, and that's the reason why we do not see the need to separate into separate companies. But it will still be part of the same group in the same way that our counterparts in the industry have group structures.
Should your proposal get the approval you require, what would Safaricom then look like 4 years from now, with that proposal you've painted?
Safaricom would have a PLC, which is a group, in the same way you'd have East Africa Breweries or KCB Group or Equity Group, and then you'd have different businesses under each, including the Safaricom Ethiopia, which we have just created in Ethiopia. So it creates better line of sight, it creates easier management structures, and today, by the way, the teams are separate. So it is not difficult for us to be able to ensure that it works within the house, a group structure.
Within that new structure, would you then consider getting a banking license?
At this stage, we are not considering getting a banking license. We intend that we'll work through partners like we've been doing before. It has worked so far, and at this stage, we have not applied to the regulators to acquire a banking license. And should that need arise in the future, I'm sure we'll make the right announcements.
Those who are for the split of Safaricom to operate as two separate entities with different boards, brands, and so forth, believe that it would work better when you have the Communications Authority of Kenya regulating the mobile unit and Central Bank regulating your M-Pesa. And they say this leads to better oversight and so forth. You have a contrary view, however, from what I hear tonight.
I don't have a contrary view with respect to how we are regulated. Today, we are regulated, the mobile financial services, M-Pesa, is regulated by the Central Bank. Today, we cannot launch any product without the Central Bank's approval. The Central Bank has oversight over all the mobile financial services business that we operate, the whole of the M-Pesa business that we operate. The Communication Authority, similarly, have oversight over our communication business. They regulate how we acquire spectrum, they regulate how we use spectrum. So today, the actual regulation works in the way that is established in law. The fact that we are operating as one doesn't prevent the two regulators regulating us in the way that you have mentioned.
And yet, because as per your last gross earnings, M-Pesa generated nearly 50% of the company's income, could that be one of the reasons why the possibility of letting it go would be quite difficult to fathom?
So M-Pesa generated 40%.
40%.
40%.
Thank you for the correction.
40% of our business. It has been a big driver of the performance of Safaricom, but it's also been connected with the brand Safaricom and the impact that Safaricom has on customers, but also on society. So it has been an integral part of our ability to innovate and give customers new products that meet their needs. And as I said, both businesses rely on the same infrastructure. The overall business investment support both businesses. Of course, as I said, we'll create a group structure that allows us to have much better line of sight. It doesn't mean that, and this is more external line of sight rather than internal, because today, internally, we have the teams working as separate teams, but collaboratively creating propositions for customers. So the size of M-Pesa is not what is preventing us from making the decision. What I said is, we would only need to make the decision if it works for customers, if it benefits customers, or if it benefits the society or benefits shareholders. keeping them together has benefited customers today and has continued to benefit the society and also shareholders.
One of the units that you've spoken of within that holding company that could become a reality one day is Safaricom Ethiopia.
Correct.
And we know there was a milestone of launching the commercial operations and a plan to hit about 200,000 subscribers. I think that's what you mentioned. But I wonder this evening, why Ethiopia? Why not the East African community, for example?
So because as you know, Ethiopia is the second largest country in Africa, and it is probably the only remaining country that has one player market. We have been looking at Ethiopia for a very long time. It has been a market that we've been targeting, and of course, the Ethiopian government decided to allow international bidders to bid for license, and we were delighted last year to be awarded the license. And 2 weeks ago, we had a huge milestone, as you say, attended by both heads of state, both the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, but also His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto, at the event where we launched commercially, a big milestone for Safaricom, huge growth profile for the future of Safaricom. As you know, business in Kenya will not grow forever. So we needed a new geography to start expanding. And Ethiopia is our neighbor. It's one of our most friendly neighbors. It is a big country. It is very attractive, not just for GSM, but also to operate mobile financial service. So we were also delighted during that event when the Prime Minister announced that we will be awarded a mobile financial services license. In the same way we've been successful in Kenya, we expect to be successful in Ethiopia, tailored to support the benefit of digitizing Ethiopia. So delighted that we are making that move. It is not just helpful for Safaricom, but also for other Kenyan companies which have tried to get into Ethiopia for a very long time. So we believe the move by Safaricom will support other Kenyan companies which want to move into Ethiopia.
So on the back of my first question then on this subject would be, so can East Africa expect a Safaricom rollout to South Sudan or somewhere else anytime soon?
Ethiopia is a large market to make right. So we need to get it right first. It is a market where in about 12 years, it will be the size of what Safaricom is today. So it's a huge market. We are going to create a business that's bigger than what we have in Kenya in terms of footprint of towers, distribution, and so on and so forth. So we need to make that right. It's also huge investment for us. We have invested so far $1.2 billion as a consortium, of which Safaricom is the majority shareholder. We are going to be investing $300 million every year. So we do need to make that right and ensure that we meet the requirement. Subsequent to that, we do have the ability and the capacity to be able to expand elsewhere. Of course, East Africa community is one of the areas we need to get into. However, we need, as I said, there are not many markets that have one player market. Many markets are very competitive. So we focused on the market where we have the greatest right to win.
How does the current political situation in Ethiopia affect your network rollout plans?
So far, the political issue in Ethiopia has not affected because it is isolated in the north. For us, our belief and our expectation and our hope is that Ethiopia will find a peaceful resolution to the conflict because it's a domestic conflict. And everyone wants that domestic conflict to be dealt with and to be concluded in a peaceful way. The West wants it, the African Union wants it, Kenya wants it. We don't want an unstable Ethiopia. So hopefully that is done in the period to come, and it is beneficial for the country. Our job is to digitize Ethiopia, to meet the license requirements that we have, and to create a business that will become a future growth vehicle for Safaricom.
You say that your rollout hasn't been affected so far, but could the dollar shortage that's being reported there be a challenge for your business? How might it affect your setup of the network across the country?
So far, we have not been affected. And one of the reasons why we are unlikely to be affected in the first few years is because the flow of dollars is inwards. Because we need to go in and invest to create the towers that we require. So most of the money that we are putting in is equity or debt that we'll need to invest into that country. Of course, as soon as we start earning bills, which we have already started since we started commercial operation, we will need to convert that into dollars should we need to import products or actually pay local costs. We have been promised by the government that telecoms will be prioritized for allocation of dollars. And people ask me about ability to extract and repatriate dividends. That is still way into the future because the business will take some time before it makes profit.
How different would you say, and I'm sure the surveys were done before you entered the market, how different would you say the Ethiopian market is from Kenya? One of your predecessors was quoted as saying that Kenya is a peculiar market. Would you say the same of Ethiopia?
I think the thing is, we need to understand that every country has unique features. Ethiopia, many people say, never been colonized. It's a very social, very rich in heritage. So we need to tailor our products. We understand what has worked in Kenya and in the region, but we need to tailor it for Ethiopia. What has surprised us is because they only have one player, they have been really anticipating for the second player to come into the market. They are aware and they know about the success of M-Pesa in Kenya and in the region. So they can't wait to be able to get their hands onto M-Pesa. Since we opened, we've seen huge customer interest. And we are encouraged by what we have seen. But it is still early days, so we need to wait and see.
I dare ask your strategy to take on the incumbent. There's been someone sitting there for a long time. You're now coming in, and with a mobile money license that I also want to hear. How soon might that service be available in Ethiopia?
So one thing I should say is that Ethiopia has many public-run business, including Ethiopia Airline and so on. Ethiotel, which is the Ethiopia telecommunication business owned by government, is run very well. It's a $1.5 billion business. They have 50 million customers. They are already an established business, and they are a credible competitor. And we believe we need to really take them seriously. We have already signed a deal to share towers, to interconnect, and also to lease transmission from them. Of course, with mobile financial services, now that the license, we have been promised that the license will be awarded to us, subject to a few process elements. We expect that over the next 6 months, we should be able to give a time frame for when we can be able to launch, now that the GSM business is underway.
Peter Ndegwa, closer home, you came into Safaricom at a time when a lot of changes were happening and the pandemic hit as well, so I think that was your first and immediate priority. As that began to taper off, there was a general election that Safaricom had a key role in. How has the journey been so far?
I think the journey has been fantastic. Safaricom is a leading business, and I have gotten to play a big role in terms of, especially during COVID, keeping the country connected. We expanded network, 4G everywhere. We gave free transactions on M-Pesa. We saw the digitization really accelerate during COVID. So we've learned a lot during this period. We've transmitted elections, and no one mentioned Safaricom during the whole process, which is fantastic, which means that we did a brilliant job. So enjoy the journey, and now looking forward to supporting the new government. They have put ICT as central to how they want to grow the country and to support the hustler economy. And we have the infrastructure and the distribution, both distribution but also technology infrastructure, to be able to support the new government in its agenda to support the country. We are also facing challenges. The economy is not in great shape as with the rest of the world. So digitizing and automating and really using digital as a way of both empowering but also reducing costs so that you can price right is one of the ways that we support the new ecosystem, but also ensure that our customers feel looked after during this period.
So the concerns that have been raised by some during elections, that there are certain parts of the country that don't have suitable network, and IBC had raised those as well, those did not materialize as key concerns from where you sit during the just concluded election?
we transmitted elections from everywhere in the country. I think there was only about 700 to 800 polling stations that they used a satellite as an option, compared to 6,000 to 7,000 in the previous election. So significant improvement. And I'm sure you didn't hear any complaints about transmission of elections. I think the key is everywhere where we have a site is 4G enabled. So you have 4G everywhere, and 4G coverage is about 96%. Now what we need is to make sure that everyone has a 4G handset. Today we only have a third of the country having 4G handset. So our next big effort as an industry, but also as Safaricom, is to make sure we put a 4G device in everyone's hand. Because that's what will allow people to access the internet. Because even with the network we have, without the right device, we cannot be able to allow people to be empowered to do what they need to do every day.
In the interest of time, I'm going to have to end up this interview, but one last question off the back of something you said. One of the concerns with something we spoke about earlier, the SIM card deregistration for those who don't meet the requirements as per the deadline, was for the communities in the north of this country, many of whom would struggle to get to a center to be able to get the requirements regularized for them, and who are going through drought conditions, at least 10 counties, plus more as well. And they're saying, postpone this for now. Let us deal with this current situation of drought. And what is your response to them tonight? And their lawmakers also spoke to the same.
So first of all, Safaricom is one of the leading lights in terms of supporting the drought response. We already have the Pamoja Tuungane. We contributed 100 million. I was in Marsabit myself and Isiolo to actually support the initiative. So we are very conscious about what is going on. So far, in all the SIMs that we have deregistered or switched off, it didn't include those areas. And we worked with the Communication Authority to say we need to make sure that the people who are affected are not switched off. So over the next 60 days, we are going to reach out to them to ensure that they are able to register so that we don't leave anyone behind. So our intention is we only have 7% to go. We've already made a huge impact, 40 percentage points in a couple of months. So we surely can be able to close on the gap of 7% so that we don't leave anyone behind. My objective is 100% SIM registration by the end of the 60 days.
You believe you'll achieve it?
I'll be close.
You'll be close.
I'll be close. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for speaking with Citizen
TV.
Safaricom CEO Peter Ndegwa live on Citizen TV's Newsnight. And we continue to, of course, follow up on a lot of the things that he's told us, and we'll give you more updates as and when we get them. Thank you for tuning in.